So recently, Newjeans lost their appeal in the whole contract battle with Ador, and now the courts made their reasoning very clear in a 16-page decision. In this video, I'm going to cover some of the key takeaways, and there are some arguments that made me roll my eyes. We're talking about how they compared their situation to a rape case. Yeah, you heard that right. Plus how they once again pushed to get Min Hee-jin back, and how the court completely shut that down with legal facts. We'll also look at their argument that Ador might lose big if they keep treating Newjeans this way, and how member Haron even became part of the legal discussion. First, the court basically said, look, this whole mess, the members kind of brought it on themselves. They didn't buy the group's argument that their contract should be canceled just because they felt the trust was broken. The court stuck with their original ruling and said the contract is still valid, meaning Newjeans can't just go off doing solo stuff on their own. Now, the decision wasn't just about the contract. It also dropped some personal information as well. Court heavily focused on the arguments that these girls are not minor, and they have to face the consequences of their actions now. So the now bunny's favorite minor card isn't going to work anymore. What made me roll my eyes was a comparison between two cases the Newjeans side used in their arguments, and some fans were hoping a past Supreme Court case about broken trust would help Newjeans, but the court shot that down too. That earlier case was completely unrelated. It involved a female minor being handed over to a man accused of rape. Can you believe that Newjeans side compared that case with their own case? I explain in a bit more detail. So part of Newjeans' whole argument was that their contract should be canceled because the trust between them and the agency had totally broken down. Yes, Newjeans' side tried to use this older Supreme Court case as an example to strengthen their argument. They were basically saying, hey, in the past the court has allowed exclusive contracts to be canceled when trust was broken between an artist and their manager. Our case is similar. The trust is broken, so we should be allowed to terminate the contract too. But the court wasn't having it. In the document of ruling, they explained why that comparison doesn't really apply here. The precedent Newjeans referenced involved a completely different and much darker situation. That case was about a manager who let a minor female celebrity drive his car, which is already questionable. But on top of that, the manager's brother was accused of raping another singer in the agency. That level of betrayal is on a whole different scale. Eventually, trust completely fell apart in that case. Both sides even filed criminal charges against each other. The court made it clear that kind of situation is not the same as what's going on with Newjeans and Ador. That situation has nothing to do with this one. I feel this argument is so absurd that comparison is wildly off base and honestly kinda cringe. Newjeans' legal team reaching for that Supreme Court case about a minor and a rape accusation to argue their contract dispute is like comparing a paper cut to a stab wound, completely tone deaf and irrelevant. The court was right to shut it down. That older case's trust breakdown was on a whole other level of horrific betrayal. Not just illit manager ignored me. It feels desperate, like they were grasping at straws to make broken trust sound more dramatic than it is. Bad move by Newjeans' legal side. Moving on, it was specifically mentioned that Haron is now legally an adult. They mentioned Haron was still a minor. During the first trial back in March, she was 17 then. But by the time of the appeal decision in June, she had turned 19, which is considered the legal age of adulthood in South Korea. Now let's talk about why the court mentioning Haron's age actually matters, simply because minors usually can't make major legal decisions on their own, like canceling a contract. They'd need a parent or guardian involved, and courts tend to be extra protective when a minor's involved, often putting the agency under more scrutiny. But fast forward to June, and Haron turned 19, which in Korea means she's officially an adult. That changes everything. She can now fully represent herself in court without needing mom or dad to sign off on anything. So if she testifies or takes a legal stand, her words carry more weight now. She's not just a kid in the eyes of the law. This shift also makes the whole Newjeans case look a bit stronger. It's no longer just a group of young girls being guided by parents. It's a team of adult women saying, hey, we don't trust this company anymore. That kind of legal autonomy might give their argument a little more punch, even though some of their legal comparisons haven't exactly hit the mark so far. And it was mentioned that there's an ongoing custody case involving Hybe parents since she's still a minor. Since she's the only one in the group who's still a minor right now, it's clear the court was paying attention to the members' ages and legal statuses during the whole process. Now here's something that wasn't talked about much. Hybe parents have actually been in disagreement over this whole legal situation. Normally, both parents would handle things together, but because they couldn't agree on what to do, Hybe mom had to step in and take legal action. Back in March, she filed a request with the Seoul Family Court to officially get the right to make decisions for Hybe during this lawsuit. The court approved it and ruled that only Hyeon's mom can act on her behalf in legal matters tied to this case. Usually, both parents are supposed to share custody when they're married, but if they can't agree, one parent can be granted sole authority for specific things, and in this case, that parent is Hyeon's mom. One of the big points Newjeans brought up was that they can't function without Min Hee-jin, but the court had a different take. They clapped back saying, well, Min Hee-jin left SM Entertainment before too, and those groups she helped create, they still thrived by working with new producers. So in the court's eyes, Newjeans isn't completely helpless without her. Newjeans' argument hinges on the idea that Min Hee-jin, their creative mastermind, is so essential to their identity and success that without her, they're basically stranded. Without her, we can't be Newjeans. It's a bold claim, and definitely not something we are hearing for the first time. You know why they'd lean into it. This was all about bringing Newjean Mama back to Ador, but the court wasn't buying it. They basically said, hold up, Newjeans. Min Hee-jin's not some irreplaceable goddess. Look at her track record. She left SM Entertainment, and the groups she worked with there didn't just survive, they thrived with new producers. This is a gut punch to Newjeans' argument. The court's pointing out that Min Hee-jin's creative magic isn't the only thing that makes a group successful. Other producers can step in, adapt, and keep the momentum going. It's like the court's telling Newjeans, you're talented, you've got a solid foundation, and Ador's got resources. You're not helpless without her. If SM's groups could move on post Min Hee-jin, why can't Newjeans? Second, the court's probably looking at the bigger picture of K-pop's machine. Groups aren't just one person's vision. They're backed by teams of songwriters, choreographers, stylists, and marketers. Ador, as a Hybe subsidiary, has access to top-tier resources. They've got producers who can mimic or evolve Newjeans' sound, and Hybe's got a track record of keeping groups like BTS and TXT thriving through changes and creative shifts. The court's implying that Newjeans' claim sounds more emotional than practical. Sure, Min Hee-jin is special to Newjeans, but K-pop's built on adaptability, not single-person dependence. And if we look at things from Newjeans' perspective, their concern kind of makes sense. If Ador starts pushing a generic Hybe-style production onto them, it could totally mess with the creative vibe that fans originally loved. Min Hee-jin's unique vision was a big part of their appeal. So yeah, their fear isn't totally out of nowhere. It just doesn't hold up legally as a strong enough reason to cancel a contract. And let's be real, it's not like Newjeans signed their contract just for Min Hee-jin's creative vision. They signed with an agency, not one person. Plus, we're talking about a company that's poured billions into this group. I really don't buy the idea that they just throw all that investment away and intentionally make Newjeans flop. At the end of the day, agencies love money, and making a group successful is how they get it. But in court arguments, the legal side holds up, not the emotional and artistic. Newjeans argued that they were being unfairly treated, especially after Min Hee-jin was removed from her CEO position. They said she was a key part of why they even signed their contracts in the first place, and that her sudden removal through what they saw as an unfair audit shattered the trust between them and Ador. So from their view, the contract was no longer valid. But the court didn't see it that way. They straight up rejected the idea that this was a breakdown of trust strong enough to end a legal contract. Instead, they started laying out facts to show that Min Hee-jin wasn't actually as central to Newjeans' formation as the members claimed. For example, they pointed out that Minji was picked as a trainee back in 2018, before Min Hee-jin even joined Hybe in 2019. And according to the ruling, there's no actual proof that Min Hee-jin chose the rest of the members either. From the court's perspective, Newjeans came from Source Music's N-Team training system, not some personal project led by Hee-jin. They also emphasized a major point. There's no mention of Min Hee-jin in the exclusive contracts. No key person clause, no requirement that she be the only one producing them. The court was like, this contract isn't with Min Hee-jin, it's with Hybe, and Hybe invested 21 billion won into this group. That's what matters here. And then they hit even harder. The court said Min Hee-jin had been trying to change the shareholder agreement with Hybe since late 2023. At the same time, she was allegedly planning to take Newjeans with her, looking for outside investors, and setting up meetings to make it all happen. Basically, she wasn't just watching things fall apart, she was helping break the whole system herself. So when Newjeans claimed the CEO got removed unfairly, the court clapped back and said, well, that's kinda on her. And finally, they clarified that just being upset about a producer being removed or feeling disappointed with Ador isn't enough to legally break a contract. That might matter emotionally, but not in court. This is where Newjeans' argument starts to fall apart in the eyes of the court. They also pointed out that a lot of Newjeans' claims came off as subjective, more about how they felt, not what's actually legally valid. Just insisting that Min Hee-jin should be the only one producing for them isn't enough to prove that trust has been broken in a legal sense. Newjeans also brought up that if this situation drags on, Hybe might lose some money, but they would suffer irrecoverable damage because of their inactivity. They even claimed that their freedom to perform and their freedom of artistic expression were being violated. But again, the court flipped that around. They said if Newjeans starts doing things on their own, outside of the contract, that would mean Ador, who's invested millions, gets nothing in return. Meanwhile, Newjeans would still benefit from the fame, the music, and the fan base that Ador helped build. So yeah, the court said that's a pretty unreasonable outcome. They even used Newjeans' own performance in Hong Kong earlier this year as an example. If they go off doing events like that without Ador's involvement, the public might start thinking the group isn't under contract anymore. which could totally damage the brand's image. That, the court said, is a bigger risk to Ador than to Newjeans. And when it comes to the group saying their rights were violated, the court responded with, "You can still do your job and make music, as long as you follow the contract. That's actually in your best interest." After the ruling, Ador released a statement thanking the court and saying they hoped this would be a turning point. They even got emotional, saying they want the girls to come back and celebrate their 3rd anniversary together in July. Ador made it clear they're still committed to helping the group grow and succeed. But despite the court encouraging both sides to settle, twice, Newjeans rejected it. Their message was pretty final. "The trust is broken. We've already crossed a river we can't come back from." In the end, the court didn't budge. All of Newjeans' appeals were tossed out, and now it's the members who filed the case that'll have to cover the legal fees. Yep, they've got to pay for losing the fight. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about all of this, about Newjeans' legal arguments, and hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. It seriously keeps me motivated to keep making better videos for you guys. Thank you so much. See you in the next one.